Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Kevin Graham and also by Jerry Taylor to talk all things Celtic. Welcome back. It's a Monday afternoon. Although it's a pre-season, Kev, lots happening, lots to talk about, loads of moves, or are there? What do you make of all the speculation that we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks?
I'm quite glad you clarified that with "or are there," because there seems to be little of substance coming out at all, and it's quite getting a wee bit boring. But I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that we've got to this wee point. It has been a long, hard season. That has been, and sometimes when you chuck so much emotion into the season, especially when it's your hobby, then it's sometimes quite good to get a wee bit of a break, and this is like really kind of nonsense season. We seem to be getting into the point where anybody that's out of contract's been linked. Anybody maybe shoot Brendan Rodgers' hands once at a charity game's getting linked to playing goals. Hiya, Jerry.
Have you been linked, Jerry? Have you been linked? We can start that rumour.
Nah.
It was what?
It was a wee cuddle I gave him.
It was
cuddle, all right. Like, so you
know,
that's next week's links. Folk who gave Brendan Rodgers a cuddle at charity game. That's next week's. We just seem to be getting into this sort of. Look, I think we know when things are a goer with Celtic players, with signings coming in. You just get a sort of wee feeling, and any of the names that have been sort of bandied about the now. There's a couple of them that I'm maybe sitting with going like that. I can see the club maybe looking doing that, like the Danish goalkeeper that's playing for Sparta Prague. I can profile-wise, price-wise, I'm going, that could be a goal. We might be like in there. Then there's other things like Kelleher and guys like that. You go, that's no a goal whatsoever. So we're in that sort of poker throwing hedgehogs at dartboards and hoping something sticks. The only one that's
got Stirling Sport, is that a pub sport in Stirling, is it, Kev? We'll have Hedgehog Societies giving us a hard time for that one, mate.
No hedgehogs get harmed in the making of this podcast.
No hedgehogs get harmed. The only hedgehogs we use are the ones who volunteer to get used in that sport, so they know what they're getting into.
Talking hedgehogs and Stirling as well, Jerry, I don't know what these guys get up to in their spare time.
Kevin, talk about going off on a tangent 2.5 minutes in.
Only 2.5 minutes in. We started off with signing targets, and now we're talking about hedgehogs on dartboards.
The only thing any substance we've had was the Stephen McGowan stuff about Narovsky and the boy for Bournemouth.
Yeah.
That's the only thing of substance.
We're going to be talking about that.
His old club?
Well, the thing is, there's been a tabled offer of a loan deal, which the player wasn't interested in. So I think that tells an even wider story about the situation he finds himself at the club and possibly his future at the club. But some of the deals that Kev's talking about, where you're looking at it thinking, there might be something in this, Jerry, for whatever reason, be that the source. I mean, you've name-checked Stephen McGowan there, very good source. Or it could be that you're looking at the profile of the player. You're also looking at him and thinking he's a Brendan Rodgers type signing. And then you're thinking that might be a goer. And obviously there's every ex-Celt that's looking for a new club is being linked with Celtic as well. I'm going to say this because I shared something in the group before we came on about the way that the mainstream now, listen, there was a time not that long ago, not just with football, but world politics, it was propaganda. Basically, they could take you down a certain path. They had so much influence, Jerry. The Scottish media were selling upwards of 1 million papers per title on a Sunday. The Sunday Mail used to sell over 1 million. So if they said something, the Scottish football public believed it. They were that influential. And where we are now, we're in a situation during the pre-season where there's that wee bit, that niggly bit between the end of the season and the start of the Euros, where nothing's happening in terms of them generating revenue online. So they'll connect anything to Celtic or Rangers to get the clicks. And we've got to try and separate the chief from the waff.
Mm-hmm. It's been quite funny to read it. I mean, don't get me wrong, some of them I've been reading have been like, aye, absolutely, let's get the whole band back together, because there's some absolute cracking players that are out there that we could get back. But I can't see it happening. I'm with Kevin in the way that I'm actually enjoying the the break for it all because it was such a crazy season. Usually, you know, it's that whole thing when you see somebody that they say they don't have a television, you say, well, where do you point your furniture at? But when it comes to like Celtic not playing, I'm usually like, well, what do I build my week around then? But because we've had such, it's like we've been out in this mad bender for the full season where it's been stumbling, we've had some highs, some real lows, and I think this is the hangover of it all now. So I'm glad just to get a few weeks, look forward to the Euros. And the way I'm looking at it is if we do start signing a lot of players before the Euros, and if they are European players, are we getting the best quality players? Because for me, the best quality players are going to be there playing for their country. So I'm not disheartened at the lack of movement. Hopefully we'll see a couple in as the Euros are going on. But I think I kind of scarred myself the January transfer window. I had my hopes up so high, and I'm traumatised for that one. So I'm just going to... Oh, well, obviously, Ida coming in, it was great, but there wasn't the movement in the summer or January that we wanted. So I'm not going to get my hopes up too early. Hopefully the last month or so of the transfer window, and after the Euros, I think we'll see a lot of movement. But I'm all for the rumours. I love it because it keeps me going. We've not got Celtic to watch, but I'm more into the kind of fan rumours. We seem to get it right more than a lot of the mainstream just now. So
it all comes down to sources, and when you consider that already in the first 6 minutes we've had hedgehogs getting thrown against dartboards, and chief from the WAF, which was meant to be wheat from the chaff. But listen, anything goes on a Monday afternoon.
I wasn't going to pick you up on that, but
I said it. I'm claiming it. One of mine. Feel free to use it. I own it.
Kev,
absolutely, Kev. You did. You were too polite to say.
I noticed that, Jerry, but I thought it was a five thing. And I went, I'm not going to jump in there. That could be a five.
He'd have been on us like a ton of bricks. He was on me when I said that Maeda was just back for the Euros.
Yes. And by the way, transfer window officially opens on the 14th. I know people are getting the old announcement videos and all this kind of stuff. But what we will do is we'll go through the ones where we think it might be a goer. We'll be looking at some of the names where you think to yourself, if it could happen, why not? It doesn't matter to me if they're an ex-player or not in terms of, writing them off. We can't have that situation where if it's a deal through an individual source that's been good for us in the past that we would say no to. So the City Group, obviously, K-Base, that's worked. Ex-players coming back, people say, oh, it never works. Well, it worked with Fraser Forster, Kev. It does work. It depends on the individual merits of the move.
It does depend on the individual merits to the move, before I go into that, John Shirley, I've got a Celtic top on. I saw you in the comments saying Jerry's on the one that ever was. I've got a Celtic top on, so I didn't care what you're going on about there. Aye, Fraser Forster worked, but it's the age and stage of players, It's depending where they are in their career. I think you're looking at maybe, like, we'll name the three off the bat. You've got Edouard, Tierney and Armstrong are the three that have been getting bandied about,
Bandied about, right? Sorry, Kev. Because you were good enough not to jump in when I made a mistake. But see that term, bandied about? I'm wondering, right, during the period of signing Japanese players, obviously you then start seeing that people from Japan are tuning in. What do they think that means? Players getting bandied about. They might think it's some kind of torturous device. If a football club wants rid of a player, Kev, they're getting bandied about. No, they're just getting spoken about. And
it's when
it's trying to not go down the journalist cliche. They're being linked with, like the journalist links.
Set to jet in.
Aye. They're getting set to jet in and stuff like that. Look, I think Tierney's probably more a goer than any of the rest of them. I've got a feeling that Tierney wouldn't be too difficult to deal with money, but Arsenal will be difficult to deal with because they need a certain money up front because of the financial fair play. Edouard, I think his time, I can't see him coming back. And Stuart Armstrong, no, he's 32. I can't see him getting brought back in. I can see Rodgers going for a player in the middle of the park that he has worked with. But out of it, my gut feeling is Tierney would be the one that I could see Rodgers pushing the boat out of those three.
See, when it
I want
comes
to talk
to
about all three of them. So we'll start with Tierney, Jerry. I mean, listen, people say don't go back. We've already explained that, and it does sometimes work. We went back with Foster's a great example of it. Kieran Tierney, the big concern I've seen is not only the wages, Jerry, but also the injury problems, right? Now, obviously, Kevin's been talking about financial fair play. They could be wangling the wage bill because if Celtic take a percentage of his wages, which I believe are 100 grand a week. I mean, even you're not even taking half of that, right? Now, I know that it's down to the clubs, and I know that right at the very bottom level, as long as you take something of the wages, then you can get the deal done. So it just depends how desperate Arsenal to get them off the wage bill going into next season. From what I'm hearing, it isn't a £10 million purchase. It's a loan to buy. And Kevin and I obviously discussed the fact, how would that benefit financial fair play? It would still get them off the wage bill, a percentage of which Celtic would pay. So we've heard this £10 million. The minute that gets floated, though, Jerry, some of the other clubs who have been interested in them will be interested again. Newcastle, for example.
Newcastle, why?
Yeah. I saw something on Twitter. I can't remember who put it up, so sorry for forgetting. We'll credit you if I remember. So they've put up that Arsenal apparently went 10 million for Tierney, but he was asking the question: have we got a 30% sell-on clause fee, and when we sold him, and if so, why don't we just pay 7 million for Arsenal and be done with it? Because they would only get 7 million if we got the 3 out of the 10. So why don't we just pay them 7 million and get over and done with? I'm hoping as well that
I would probably say, Jerry, that we've probably got a 30% sell-on clause on anything above 25 million. So it'll be their profit above the 25 million that we'll be due the 30% on. So if they're selling them for 10 million, we're no due nada.
Nothing.
We're getting nothing.
Well, even when it comes to like the wage, I'm hoping that he's been saving. Do you know what I mean? I hope he's been sensible and he's been saving up so he can come back to Scotland, live like a king, and play for the team that he loves. It's never as simple as that. That's the kind of the hope you've always got as a fan, especially for when it's, like we say, one of our own. I think everyone looks back to the cup final where he's had his jaw broken and he's come running back and ran through the crowds to get into the stadium and lift that trophy. And I think everyone remembers that. It's not just his passion. He was a fantastic player, one of the best young players we've brought through in my lifetime anyway. And I think for me, I know the injury thing's a worry, but for me, if we had Kieran Tierney even for half the season, I think I'd be sold. I just think for the important games and for a run in Europe, if we can keep him fit, and I just think it'd be a no-brainer. I say no-brainer. That's probably the wrong choice of us because there's a lot to think about when it comes to it. I get some of the fans worry, but for me, I don't know if I'm letting passion get ahead of me, but I would love to see him back at Celtic. I really would, if the deal's right and if we can afford him.
I think where I'm saying, I agree with you, Jerry, to the point, whereas I think the player and his agent might be easier to deal with if Celtic was the only offer on the table. But Arsenal will only be easy to deal with the way that we would want to structure the deal. I mean, last season, Newcastle wanted to take Tierney on loan to buy him for 25 million this season. And Arsenal says, no, we want the £25 million up front because we need that £25 million up front. So I think you may see that even though we may have a passing interest in Tierney, there'll be other clubs interested as well who will probably meet Arsenal's structure of the financial deal easier than what we would be able to do. But out of the three of them that are getting mentioned, my feeling would be that wages wouldn't be a problem with Tierney if we were the only offer on the table. But I don't think we will be.
I think
we're hoping for homesickness, aren't we?
Pros and cons for both, for all three of them, I think. But in terms of Kieran Tierney, we spoke about him last pre-season. There was a headline on Acsom last pre-season talking about the Kieran Tierney thing because there was interest last season. So people get a little bit, cautious when they think, is it just lazy journalism or lazy recruitment? It could be a bit of both. But Kieran Tierney has been linked, as you say, Armstrong and Edward. And there's just this tendency to say no to all three players. But when you look at Armstrong, what about the impact in Moy, Kev? When Moy came in, wrong side of 30, a veteran, you know, international experience, and he played a blinder for a season, didn't he?
He did. I think we missed him last season. I think that showed, and also when you look back at Postecoglou's final couple of months, there was a Moy-shaped hole in the middle of your midfield, and the performances started dropping. Always remember him coming on against Rangers at Hampden, and he completely changed the flow of that game when he came on. I'll say this: Moy's a far better player than Stuart Armstrong. He is. Callum McGregor's 31 on Friday. McGregor's 31 on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I think Stuart Armstrong is probably too old to be considered for what Rodgers looking experience-wise in the middle of the park. And Rodgers would be looking to get a player for another couple of years. So if we're looking for experience in the middle of the park, it would probably be a player 27, 28, 29, where we can get 2 or 3 seasons out of him.
I would say, Kev, Stuart Armstrong is just paper talk. It's lazy journalism, and we're not really in for him. I mean, if he was to come in, is he a better player than all the guys on the fringes that haven't really appeared over the last season or so? Yes, he is. He's better than that. But if we have to improve, you want every single player to come in to make an immediate impact in the starting 11, so that the guys who were maybe running a wee bit on empty last season, who were maybe stopgaps, and I'm talking about Greg Taylor, Liam Scales, and there's a couple of others in the team, they then become your backup. You just, become a much stronger force because you brought in a better calibre of player. I'm looking at the centre-half position. It would be easy to be linked to X, Y, and Z who used to play with Celtic. Jason Denayer, let's talk about him. Or you talk about a player who might actually match the ability and the quality of a Carter Vickers. And it's, is it Chris Metham? Is that how you pronounce his name? Metham? The Welsh international. Right, 26 years of age, Bournemouth, Premiership experience. He's the type of guy you're looking at, Jerry, you're thinking, that's got Brendan Rodgers' fingerprints all over it, if there's any truth in that speculation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the one that kind of, out of the list that I'd seen, the one that my eye was kind of drawn to, the one that seemed like the solid type of player that we would need, and just like you say, what Brendan Rodgers would need. On the Armstrong thing, now excuse my lack of national team knowledge at the moment, but did he get a call up for the Euros?
He's injured at the moment.
He's in
the squad. He is in the squad and will feature at one point.
Well, see if he went in and lit up the Euros, would you have second thoughts? Would you maybe consider it if he showed something in the Euros to say maybe he could do something for a season at the very least? I get what you're saying, that McGregor's that year older as well now, but I don't know. Am I just going by these beautiful hair? Do I just want that back strutting about Celtic Park? Or I'd still believe that I think he's got something to offer. I think I'd be lying either way because I've not watched enough of him to see what he's still got. So it'll be interesting to see what he does in the Euros. But you can tell with the type of player that Brendan likes. Do you know what I loved? I was going through this morning all the transfers he's brought in from his 2 terms. We can't really say what ones for last season were Brendan's. Well, we know the odd one, but from the summer transfer window, we can't really tell. But when you look at who he brings in, he's got a mix. He's got your Scott Sinclair for a bit of flair. You've got your Kolo Toure, the older head, and then the Dembele. When bringing Dembele in, I had no idea who he was. You're obviously a big football fans that know everything about English football, knew who he was. I didn't have a clue, and what a surprise he was. And then you've got your Johnny Hayes that he's bringing in. People had really had a good eye, and he knows the type of player he wants. And I think he likes players that he's familiar with. He's got a connection with. So I'm excited to see, and I don't think it will be happening in the next few weeks, but I'm really interested to see what he does in the midfield. Really interested to see.
Jerry asked a question, Kev. Would a Euros turn your head on a player like Armstrong, who, by the way, I don't think the links have got any weight behind them, but would a performance at the Euros change your mind about the player?
I'm going to say this, and I didn't mean this to be harsh, and I do not mean this to be harsh on Stuart Armstrong, but the club would rightly be questioned if we bring in one midfield player this summer and it's Stuart Armstrong.
Oh, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
It would be. Yeah. And if we end up at the end of the transfer window signing Stuart Armstrong on the back of a decent Euros, then something has definitely went up behind the scenes with regards to scouting players. You're talking about the big centre half. So in a word, no, it wouldn't have changed my mind. Armstrong. We're talking about the big centre half with Bournemouth. That's a very, very Celtic signing. A guy, Premier League, no really getting a game. Has got a decent pedigree. Looks a bit Cameron Carter-Vickers like, eh?
Yeah.
It's a type of guy it probably would have been on our radar anyway. I would reckon. So I can see a bit of mileage in that one. I really can see a bit of mileage in that one. If the fees high to what we used to be signing, but he is 26, coming into his peak year. He's unlucky with injuries last year. That's how he's ended up at the Bournemouth team. So that's the type of thing when you see, as we were talking earlier, when you see rumours, you go that ticks quite a few boxes that we would be involved in.
Yeah, 100%.
That just doesn't seem like an agent throwing something out there. There's a few boxes that have been ticked in that one.
Without a doubt, yeah. I mean, you look at the fee, the reported fee is £8 million, and we've been conditioned almost to balk at that figure. It's £8 million. What are you expecting? You know what I mean, kid? It's like Chris Julian was £7 million.
That was exactly what I was about to say.
5 years ago.
Maurice Jens.
Is that 5 years since we signed Julian?
Julian, 2019, Jerry. He came
in. His debut.
I thought under Ange Postecoglou was one of the guys that obviously he didn't fancy. But 5 years ago, I'm just trying to look at this, he would have been 26, Kev. So Julien came in, 26 years of age, £7 million. He didn't have any international experience other under 20 for France. So I think what you've got here is you've got a guy who has played at a really high level. It's the level that Brendan Rodgers is well aware of. He knows it inside out doing an English Premiership. And although, what did he play last season? Something under 15 games last season, injury prone. It looks as though it's a goer. So I would be really, really keen on that. I'm wanting to know your thoughts in the comments section. We have been talking about everything from throwing hedgehogs at a dartboard to potential centre-half signings. Here we go. David, we will be talking about also moving players on. David Boyle talks about Lagerbielke, Haksabanovic. There's been talk about interest from Italy for both of those players. So Lagerbielke to Lecce, that was a team that was in for him in January. And Haksabanovic has had interest from Parma, just newly promoted to Serie A, as well as Chievo, Verona and Torino. So 3 teams in for Haksabanovic. Apparently all Celtic want to do is get their money back for the player, 1.7 million. Lagerbielke, 3 million. Do you get your money back on him, guys? He's barely kicked a ball. You're probably going to lose on him, aren't you?
It's a strange one. I felt sorry for him. I definitely felt sorry for the guy. Like when he thought he was getting his move in January and then get called back because who was it that got injured? Was it Wales? No.
Vickers.
Vickers. Get injured. So I felt for him. I don't think we're going to recoup much money back for him. He's not played enough to show that he's raised his value. Oh, nah. I think that's
in terms of his profile. You look at his age, international player, now got Champions League experience. You hope, Kev, that the club are able to fashion that so we don't lose, a lot of money on the player, to be fair. I mean, yeah, it's not worked out between him and Brendan Rodgers for whatever reason. We've heard that it's down to pace. He wasn't moving the ball fast enough. He didn't have enough pace in his legs. So straight away, he's made a decision on him. He wasn't good enough. What that allowed Liam Scales to do is a rebirth of a Celtic career, Kev. So Lagerbielke, if he goes, you wish him all the best, but my biggest concern is it's £3 million. How much of that money do we get back?
You won't get your £3 million back for sure, but you should at least get. Again, look at the teams that he's been linked with, bottom half Serie A teams, who their top would probably be about £2 million. That's what they're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, we've got a load of cash in the bank. and we will sell players for profit. So there's the wee accountant they'll be going, oh, well, if we lose $500,000 on that one, $1.5 million, that we're going to make it here and here. And that's one of the reasons that I reckon by the time we get to the end of the transfer window, the books will be balanced, because that's the way that we do things. I think what's best for the player is just getting him out the club, and him moving out the club. Even though he likes visiting this area, seemingly he's been seen quite a few times up Stirling Castle and the Wallace Monument and stuff like that. I've never invited him in for a cup of tea or anything like that, lads, so I didn't actually ken what's going on. But
have you been bad for him as he came looking for you?
Look, I think Rodgers has put him up as a patsy. I think Rodgers has put him up as the hangway
to wash his hands with the window.
I think he's a player. It was easier for Rodgers to pick him. I do think that, because we haven't seen enough of him. We definitely haven't seen enough of him. You can't judge anybody that's signed on the Wednesday then plays at Rugby Park on a Sunday and makes an absolute mess of himself in a game where we didn't play well anyway. I think he's been put out there as this one day was a disaster, and here's the man that I'm going to blame.
Or just use as an example of the window. Yeah.
Or use an example of the window. That's just my feeling. That's just the feeling that I get when I actually see the situation. I'm probably talking rubbish, but that's just the feeling that I get. Haksabanovic busted flush. If you get a mop and a bottle of Iron Brew for him, then he's off. Like, really, again, that's one you just want to get off the wage bill. And if he's got interest in Italy, I can see him going there, maybe on loan again, because I can't see even Parma, who have just been back promoted. I can't see Parma getting our money back from him. We're going to need to take a hit on these guys. We really are going to take it.
But 1.7, Kev. We talk about getting Matt O'Reilly for 1.5. It's peanuts. So 1.7 to a Serie A club, that'll be the cheapest buy they make this summer. I think we could get our money back on him. Because remember, we got him when he had made the move to Rubin Kazan for £5 or £6 million. But because of the global situation with registrations and all the rest of it, we were able to pick him up on the cheap. And that's why he came for 1.7. So to get your money back, I think it's doable on Haksabanovic.
It depends on how good his agent is, and it depends on folk for his neck of the woods do go to Italy quite often. It seems to be a move for that area of Eastern Europe. They go to Italy quite a bit. So yes, he's probably still his reputation. That is probably reputation, and his agent's probably gone. A couple of things didn't work out for him. He's went to Celtic, no worked out, change a manager, blah blah blah. He's went to Stoke, they changed their manager right away, but there's still a play there. He's still getting picked for internationals, so you could get your money back. But I'm just glad that there's folk interested in him, and we can get him off the wage bill. Well, hopefully it is a concrete interest to get him off the wage bill.
Because he's not going to be playing for Brendan, is he? He's not playing for Brendan Rodgers again after his Instagram.
No.
Faux pas.
I was so confused, right? So we were talking about Lagerbielke, and then my screen started to glitch and go all trippy. And then when it cut back in, I didn't realise you were talking about Haksabanovic. So I thought Kevin was having a breakdown, saying about him going to Stoke and all. I was like, what's going on here? So I'm caught up now. So
maybe he just went on a day out after he had been at Wallace Monument up in Stirling. He went down to Stoke. I'm not sure what's in Stoke. Would you visit? Who knows? Is anybody listening from Stoke? Let us know. Celtic follower. There's probably a CSC in there. Hopefully, there's a lot of work getting done behind closed doors with regards to incomings and, importantly, outgoings, by the way. The excuse that the window isn't open or the Euros, etc., doesn't delay deals being agreed. Yeah, there will be a lot of work going on, and a big part of that will be moving on a lot of these players, Kev, because what you said there, absolutely. If you're moving on, let's say 10 players, right? And the fees aren't all massively for each specific player, but when you accumulate 10 players worth of fees and obviously the saved wages, then it's huge. It's sizable. I mean, Mikey Johnson still has interest from West Brom. What are they talking about? A fee there, Jerry? £3 million. So you add that onto the 1.7 for Haksabanovic, a couple of £1 million for Lagerbielke. You then start to add to your budget. as well. Because we talk about coming out of a transfer window, having never had a net spend, because we've always had the big sale. Jota gets sold, we spend the money. Even in January, David Turnbull was able to kind of bankroll the moves that we made in January there. It's great business, right? I get it. But what we keep talking about is pushing the boat out that wee bit more and, maybe even spending more than you bring in. Here we go. We've got a £3 super sticker from Glow Boys 88. Thank you for supporting the channel. And Norban Culture, painting the house or Acsom. Do both. Just get it on in the background. Don't use it as an excuse to stop the painting. Get it on in the background. The urban culture.
At least they didn't say watching the paint dry or Acsom.
Yeah, I know. Maybe.
What Celtic follower says is quite interesting when you hear Arameda talk and say folk go, there should be things down the road. They'll all get players be announced transfers on Friday when the transfer window opens. There will be guys that are playing in the Euros. There will be guys who are playing in Copa America, do know where they're going or know what teams are in for them, but nothing will happen until they're out their competitions because they want to focus on their competitions. But you're looking at Arameda, he went like that. Well, I'm a Norwich player. I went back to Norwich. Mm-hmm. The new manager says, I haven't spoke to the new manager, but if they return back to training on a set date, I'm on international duty, then I'm going on holiday. And you're going, there's thousands of players like that. But that can change very, very quickly. So for folk to come with an excuse, I'm worried because there's nothing moving. It's a very, very strange time for players, for things to actually move. That's not to say that nothing has moved. If you look at last season, I think we had already announced the aforementioned Lagerbielke and Odin Holm by this point. They were in the door virtually as soon as the season finished. Mm-hmm. But as soon as Celtic came back, things went up. Then we started announcing Yang, and the links became more concrete once everybody was back in the building working. But that's not to say nothing's happened. But this is dead air at this. This is a dead period in the football world at this point, unless folk have spoke to clubs months ago and say, right, I'm gone. Then you can announce that on the 14th of June. It's very, very difficult.
No, there's no doubt about it. It's difficult. I think the biggest concern that we've spoken about, Jerry, is the fact that the structure isn't in place yet. The heads of the departments aren't in place. That's a bit of a concern for me.
Well, I kind of need them there if we're looking for any movement. But I don't know how that all works, the ins and outs and that. I was going to say something on the Ida thing, if that's all right, just what Kev had mentioned them, right? Because there's something I'm thinking about. Like, there's a choice that Ida's got to make now. If he comes back to Celtic, right, he'll come back, and if he plays well, he'll become a good Celtic player that we had. If he doesn't come back, will he go down as a cult hero for what he did for that few months? If he's risking coming back and just becoming an average Celtic player, he could be a great Celtic player. But if he doesn't come back, he's got cult status for the big goals that he scored. So I think he'll be weighing up as well. There's a lot more to it than just...
He'll be a hero forever, Jerry. You're right.
Aye.
It's like when Paul Weller split the jam up. You know what I mean? There's
always an analogy, isn't there?
It is, though. It's like you stop it there, and there's no bad memory about him. I must admit, he is a player that I would love to bring in. Stephen Kennedy, great to see you, Stephen. You're talking about 30 million for O'Reilly. Thankfully, other than a wee picture of him walking down the street on holiday with his gran, there hasn't been a lot of chat about Matt O'Reilly. Oh, did you see the picture? It was...
No, I've not seen this.
It's just peak Matt O'Reilly.
Kev, I'm Googling this now.
Looking after his gran, holding her hand, walking down the street. Brilliant. I loved it.
Granny O.
Yeah, shout out to Granny O'Reilly. We've also got here Celt 88. I don't want to upset anybody from Stoke who's tuning in, so you have a right to reply, but you say that you would rather do 6 years in prison than 6 months in Stoke. Is it that bad, Kev?
Well, somebody in the comments just rightly reminded me, Ralph Malfi Evekins, he's for Stoke, and there's a Neil Lennon CSC in Stoke.
Brilliant. Right, so it's not as bad as you're making out there, Celt 88.
Somebody just pointed out Phil Taylor's for Stoke as well. That's a downside.
Yeah. Mantis Toboggan MD, it's not great business if the overall quality of the squad regresses. We're a poorer squad now than we were 12 months ago. Absolutely. Couldn't argue with that. I think when you look at And I mentioned the treble-winning squad rather than a team that finished the season under Ange in season 2. You know, it wasn't just Jota and Starfelt and Moy that we lost. We did lose Giakoumakis throughout the season and Juranovic. I think you've got 5 players in. We've since lost Joe Hart from that team. Got half a dozen guys from that Ange team, if you like, who are gone. And then you've got to ask yourself, in terms of like-for-like quality, let's actually look through it. So Joe Hart, we don't know yet because we've not signed a new goalie. Right back, Juranovic. Is Johnston better? Discuss, because I think, you know, it's a close run thing. You then go to Starfelt. Did we replace him? Absolutely not. We didn't. We spent £8 million. Didn't really replace him. Going to the midfield, Aaron Moy. Did we bring in a sufficient replacement for Moy? Because the midfield that I saw finishing last season were guys that were playing under Ange Postecoglou. So we certainly didn't bring in a midfielder who replaced Moy sufficiently. Jota, no chance. We came nowhere near replacing Jota. And Giakoumakis, who did we bring in? We brought in O. O's not made it at Celtic. He potentially will be offloaded this summer. And of course, we brought in Ida, who I think, you know, as Jerry says, if he never kicks another ball for Celtic, he'll be a hero forever. But it's true what Mantis Toboggan says, Kev. We have lost a lot of quality, and arguably Johnson, but the rest of them, we've not replaced them.
No, we haven't. Robbie Williams is for Stoke as well.
Hey, there's a picture of him in a Rangers top, so... You know.
There you go, Robbie Williams. Yeah. What was it? The fat dancer, they take that. Yeah.
Him and Mark Owen, they went to a Celtic Rangers game wearing Rangers jerseys.
Yes, they did. They did that. No, we haven't replaced them. Jerry makes a point that we haven't. Basically, we've sacked the head scout and the guy, the head of recruitment.
So no, they resigned. They resigned, Kev.
They resigned, I will.
Oh, that's right.
Whatever, right.
I'm being... Listen, they definitely did. My phone's pinging. They resigned.
I'm sure their fences are painted in their gardens anyway, with the amount of time that they've been on garden leave.
Yes.
You know. So this summer window, you've got 2 factions. You've got the scouting network that's already there, and Rodgers is now telling them directly, by the way, this is what I'm looking for. So you go out and find that. Then you'll have the other network that Rodgers knows of players that he maybe knows, or agents that he trusts, or agencies that he trusts will offer them players. So we're working in tandem with 2 here. So there's no like a club structure. You've got the manager who's telling the scouts, this is what I want you to look for. I want you to look for a higher caliber player, but they've got to meet certain conditions. So that'll be the network that's already there, because we can't rip up that network, because we've got nobody. We haven't got a head of recruitment or a chief scout to come in and rip up that network. So that's got to get used. Then you've got Rodgers going like that. Rodgers will be using known and trusted guys that he knows, that he's worked with previously. So I think a lot, because of these 2 things that are working out, I think that's how you're seeing a lot of lazy links, because folk can look at it and go, well, there's a bit of shambles going on here. There's old and new, and so that's why we'll get that. And I think we'll get a balance of the 2. I think we'll get the balance of the 2. I think the scouting team need to bring in guys of a certain age that were better than last season, and we will get guys that Rodgers knows, or will come from trusted agents that Rodgers knows, who will be maybe late 20s, 27 to 30. I reckon that we will see that, but also we will also see. I think we'll get a couple of flyers for last summer as well. I think we'll see a couple of players who may improve after a year in the club, who Rodgers does fancy, because we need day guys. We need some of them to actually step up, because we're not going to. You spoke about 8 or 9 players. We're not going to sign 8 or 9 players at the level that we actually need. I just can't see that happening. If we sign 8 or 9 players again, we're punting left, right, and centre.
Who could we salvage, do you think, Kev, from the summer? That's the big question. Let's take, for a wee second, let's take Bernardo out of it, right? Because he may or may not come back. But the players that we've been left with, who do you think we can salvage?
Palmer. And I've been Palmer's biggest critic on here. I think there's metrics there that players are measured on where Rodgers will go, I can make a player out of that. Narovski as well. The fact that Narovski was willing to stay and wait and see what actually happens makes me think that Narovski actually thinks there's something could help him as well. Who else? They're the two that jumped to mind. I think Kuhn will improve, even though because he was a Rodgers player when he came in. But I really do think that Palma is probably the main one for last summer. Palma and Narovski are the two I reckon that we might be able to salvage something out of.
The big thing about Narovski, of course, is that the club were willing to loan him out, Jerry. So it might be that the player is determined to make it work. By the way, we did a show with Paddy McCourt in Glasgow, and I've not yet seen the documentary, but a documentary team from Germany came over to film Acsom and film the fans and the cult hero and all this kind of stuff. They were making a documentary about the biggest derbies in world football. And that weekend, we were playing Rangers, weren't we? Mm-hmm. It was a 3-each game. And they did an interview with us. As I say, I've not seen it yet. But in relation to what they tried to do, they contacted Celtic 3 months in advance. They wanted to go up to Celtic Park, do the wander around there and film inside the stadium, outside the stadium, and maybe get an interview with one or two of the guys. Celtic never got back to them. So what they did, somehow, they managed to get in touch with Navrowski's agent, and Navrowski met them at the Brazen Head and done an interview.
Oh, brilliant.
He went rogue and done an interview with the guys, right?
I like that.
I like that. Do you know something? And here, Kev, mark your calendar. I absolutely agree with everything you just said there. Everything you said with Palma and with Rocky. I think Brendan will get a tune out of them. And I think, well, if they stay with Palma, I think we have seen improvements. Remember when we were all, especially me, I think I used the term ripping my knitting when he was smiling, when he was missing and he was putting bad passes in.
Yeah.
And you saw a lot of people had complained about that. In the next game, honestly, when the camera cut to him coming off the bench, he looked steely, he looked serious, and he kept that up for the game, and he wasn't smiling after. And I think that he can learn, and he's willing to learn. I think that's the good thing about Palma. I think the excitement of coming to such a big club. I mean, you think about it, you're coming from a country from miles and miles away, and you go into a stadium like that with the passion of those fans. Of course, it's going to be infectious. And a young player's he's going to be bubbling, isn't he? He's going to be ready to go. And I think it's just a case of, right, calm yourself down, let your head settle a bit and think about what you're doing. Don't get rushes of blood to the head. And I think we'll see him get better and better. So towards the end of the season, he wasn't quite ripping my knitting, but tugging on my wool a wee bit maybe. But I think next year he'll be a neatly fitting jumper for us all. That was the worst analogy I've ever heard.
The thing I would say to Kev's suggestions, I might be writing Navrowski off prematurely, Kev, but one guy you did mention, and I think that we've probably not seen enough to justify it, but I agree with you, is Kuhn. I think Kuhn's got all the minerals to be a really effective winger for Brendan Rodgers. And I do think Brendan had a big part to play in the 2 signings in January. So he's not going to give up on him as easily either, is he?
No, he's not going to give up on him. And I go back to the game against Livingston when we were struggling to break them down, and he done the wee jink on the byline and got into the box. And he's done stuff like that. Like, you're a player. You've got that stuff in you that can change games that are stuffy, that stuffy games that are compact. What I would also say, they're the three that I think can first team squad can actually make an impact for the bench starting and stuff like that. But then on the other hand, you've got Kwon and you've got Odenholm, who would probably benefit for going back out on loan, because I'm not quite willing to write them off yet. Well, you just go out loan and get more game time because you're young enough to actually do that. And that's where we will be with some of them. Folk in the comments are talking about Boston Law as well. Championship on loan for me. Unless he actually comes up and rips up pre-season. It's championship on loan. Let's go and step you up. Mikey Johnson, by the way, you're going to the championship because we're going to get money for you. And there's got to be harsh decisions be made. But I do think we can't write off all of them last season as duds. There's got to have time to they've got to have time to develop and grow at the club. And there's some of them showed, by the way, that there's a player in there, and it looks like you could have the mental fortitude to play for Celtic.
The mental fortitude.
Because the players might come back in the summer with a completely different attitude.
Yeah,
who knows? But if they come back with the right attitude, I think these guys have got the raw materials there
to work with. The thing is, Kev, winning the double galvanises the squad and everybody in the squad. So guys like Palmer, they've not experienced what happened at the end of the season there. They've not experienced it. It's like a drug. They want more of that, don't they? And in order to get more of that, they need to do exactly what Brendan Rodgers is telling them. Because, being my side, look at Haksabanovic. That's what happens if you've got an attitude. You'll be away. Not just to Stoke. Look at Bernabe. He was away to Brazil. So if you're not going to be part of this and do exactly what I'm laying down here, you're not be part of the squad. And it does come down, Kev, as you say, to the ones who are willing to take that on board. Like, I hope Palmer. I think Kuhn came into this, and he's probably done it before when he was at Ajax and Bayern Munich. He's come in and it's just been like, boom, this is a big club, it's different. When he's at Rapid Vienna, he seems to be able to express himself, but it's just to try and get that mentality shift to Celtic now. And like you say, Kev, I think he's shown flashes. He's not had a big game yet, Jerry. He's not had a game where you've been like, this boy's a player, and you can see everything that he's done, and you can see it consistently throughout a game. I reckon under Brendan Rodgers having a pre-season, the end of last campaign, we might still get a tune out of Kuhn. I don't want to write him off. Palmer, I want him. I want it to work for. He's a likeable guy, but he frustrates the life out of you at the same time. Yang, I've kind of written Yang off, maybe unfairly. And I think when you look at his lack of game time after the Rangers 3-each game, where he didn't defend properly, Matondo's goal, the third goal, he didn't defend that. That could have been really damaging for us in the running, and he didn't really feature after it. So I think Brendan's been ruthless, Jerry, but if you show the right application and attitude, you will get a chance with Brendan Rodgers, won't you? He talks about that, doesn't he? What you do in training, that's what makes me decide who's playing. Yeah,
definitely. He's a bit of the silent assassin, isn't he? It's like, there's an old saying, don't confuse my softness for daftness, isn't it? And he'll be ruthless, and he's done it at the right times. I think when you look at the Bernabe situation, did they not loan him out in March or something like that? It was just a bizarre time for him to go.
Aye, the Brazilian window was still open. He was like, you're off. And I think that came down to the Kilmarnock game, Jerry.
Something's happened there. And then things started to get a bit better after that. He knows, I think if there's any, I'm going to try and say the word again. Remember, I tried this in Wonder Round Paradise.
Chief
and any toxicity. Yeah. Toxicity in the dressing room. He gets it out there. He gets rid. He's been ruthless. I think, can I just talk about when you were saying about Bosun Lawal? I got a sneaky wee feeling he's going to get some game time next season. I know Fleetwood didn't have a great season, but from what I'm hearing, without him, it would have been even worse. And there's a lot of the fans that when Brownie started managing them, I started following them, and then I had loads of Fleetwood fans that I was following. So all season I was seeing so much said about him, so many great things, and he's got a point to prove. And we've seen it happen with our own captain going down to a lower league down south and coming back and just absolutely ripping it up. So I'm hoping he's going to grab it with both hands. And like you say, Brendan's the man. If anyone's going to give them a chance, it's going to be him. I think he gets off in developing players, like he said. That's his thing, not buying the big quality players. He's seen his players develop and become world beaters of their own. So I'm excited about that one. And like you said, Brendan, go for it, mate.
There's a number of things here, and it all depends what attitude the players come back with. So Narosky showed the right attitude, because I didn't want to go on loan. But if we bring in the defender for Bournemouth, and some things happen in pre-season, that he might look at the end of August and go, I'm going to need to go out on loan here because it's quite clear that I'm not going to get a sniff here, right? Yeah. So it's good that he's willing to stay, what it looks like he's willing to stay and fight. But then you could get one of these boys, for example, you could get Odin Holm. Now I'm going to use Odin Holm for an example. I said you could go out and loan. But you remember when Tierney first broke into the team as a wee skinny boy, and then Rodgers turned up. Then within 6 weeks, Tierney comes back for pre-season and he's built like that. Right?
Oh, the legs on him.
Aye.
Somebody's going to cut that for a gift, mate.
It's true though. He was an absolute powerhouse. Remember the pre-season photographs, Kev, and he had these thighs, man. It was clear. It was a bit like Christie when he went to Aberdeen. He came back at like a stone and a half heavy.
Ayer as well when he went to Kilmarnock and they came back. So there might be a few surprises for us and Rodgers when he turns up, when the team come back training. For the fringe players that know on international duty come back training, they could be going, wow, that was
Klamala did it, Kev. Klamala did it.
Klamala.
Remember, you were saying he looked like an ultra. No,
Kyogo rocks up.
Come on.
So there could be guys who have learned their lesson and came back and will give Rodgers to think about. So that's why it's quite, you can't really write anybody off, because you didn't ken what they're doing the noon, you didn't ken what's going to turn up on that first day of pre-season. Right, some of them could actually turn up and just be the same as last season, and you can write them off, and there's someone who had so many chances. Mikey Johnson's had so many chances point now that I really want him to go and be a success somewhere else, because he's got all the ability in the world, but it just doesn't seem that it's going to work out for him at Celtic. And hopefully he's got that in his head, being how successful he was at West Brom, that, by the way, I need to move here.
Yeah, because you can enjoy your life.
But I need to move. I need to move on.
And we've finally got a chance to cash in on him now for a bit more than what we would have got in the past.
What would they have gone for before, Jerry? £1 million?
I reckon £1 million, 1.5. But now I wouldn't be surprised if we can get close to 4 or 5 for him. 6 maybe.
You think about what we were talking about, you signing Ida, who was a third choice at Norwich. Mikey Johnson in the same league was tearing it up, first choice for West Brom. So I absolutely get that. Kev, a great point you make there about coming back with the intent of saying, I'm going to be part of this team. I remember having the same discussion at the flip side of that with Haksabanovic during the Japanese tour last pre-season, where it looked as though all he'd done is got a sleeve tattoo and dyed his hair blonde, remember? And it was like, it doesn't look as though you've actually come back with any real intent to positively affect this team. Here's one I'm going to throw out, guys, right? Neil Lennon's just got a new job. And obviously, Brendan Rodgers took every opportunity he possibly could to put Lenny front and centre, didn't he? You noticed that at the end of last season? I think Kilmarnock game, he had him up at the crowd, all this kind of stuff. And during the interviews, he says it's your fault. And Rodgers said it's your fault as well. There was this mutual respect, I think, between the two gaffers. Lenny, over there, in terms of budget and all the rest of it, he's going to have to cut his cloth accordingly. Imagine going to him, Kevin, saying, right, and by the way, yes, Neil Lennon has been criticised, not abused, criticised on this show in the past, and in particular, the final season he was at the club, Kev. But there is no doubt, when you look at the likes of James Forrest, you look at Jeremy Frimpong, and there are loads of other examples. He can develop a player, Kev. Lenny can develop a player, right? Why not send the likes of Odin home to Neil Lennon on a season-long loan? Does that not make sense to you? Whereby there's a link to the club. You've got the relationship between Rodgers and Lenny. So Rodgers can say, Lenny, this is what I'm looking for from this player. And give him 2 or 3 players of that ilk. Now, I know we've got Scott Brown in the Championship here. These teams are always, vying for the same pool of players, Kev, season after season. They've all got a similar budget. You've seen the prize money, right? You look at some of the divisions and there's not much between them in terms of their budget. But if you were to go to Brunei and say some of the younger guys who are maybe graduating for the Lowland League last season, let's push them up and give them to Brunei. I would love to see that. I would love to see 3 or 4 of the guys we've mentioned going to the likes of Scott Brown and Neil Lennon.
It's an obvious answer, isn't it? That is a right obvious answer that you're sending players to guys that you trust.
Yeah.
You're not sending them to Charlie Adam. You're sending them to guys that you actually trust. Look, I say that complete and utterly flippantly because
you've done well. You've done well for Lavo, yeah.
I say that completely flippantly because these guys work in football, and I'm sure Darren O'Dea will let players go to places where he knows that that's not going to work. That's probably one of the biggest remits of Darren O'Dea's job, right? Lenny, the thing about Lenny, right? I was very, very critical about my Punto's on fire and all of that, and the COVID season. Like I was really, really critical of Neil Lennon at that point.
What? Sorry, Kev. What's the Punto on fire? What was the?
No, sorry, I'm glad you've asked this question because I thought it was something I missed out here.
If you ever want to go back and revisit the post-match shows during the
might do that someday. Might do that someday.
I was like, it's like everybody's driving past us on the motorway and your Punto's lying on the hard shooter on fire because of the way that we were being run at that point, right?
Right.
So, but then you get to
the Punto's on fire. There's a song in there somewhere. Right, okay.
That's great.
So then you get to time as a massive healer, and you listen to other clubs talking about the problems they had during COVID.
Yeah.
Other big football clubs, and they say it was really, really hard, really difficult. I think the club handled the whole COVID thing badly, and other clubs handled it better than us. Then you get to this is Acsom, and you hear Jackie Mack, somebody who has experience of working within football clubs, going, nobody would have sorted that out. What they had,
that was really interesting, Kev, wasn't it? That point.
And that was really like, that's an insight that we didn't usually get, and that's just no Jackie backing up his pal. That's him gone. What was going on there? Nobody would have been able to change that round. Then you start thinking to yourself, well, maybe that was the club's thinking as well. Going, this is too far down the road. Doesn't matter making the change the now because nothing is actually going to change. But look, time's a healer with Neil Lennon, and there would be guys that you would want to maybe send out to the Romanian league, get a bit of life experience as well. Yeah. Some of these young guys. I'm not saying nothing about, I'm sure going to Ayr United would be a bit life experience, having to go out in Ayr and go show them.
They can come hang out with me.
And maybe meeting Jerry. But go and get a bit of life experience. Go and stay in a foreign country for a year. Go and grow up. Go and didn't have things easy.
What an opportunity, Kev. What an opportunity it would be. Yep.
And there's more and more young Scottish players will be up for it now because of the number of Scottish players have went to Germany, Italy recently as well. It's no they're not just going, I will look to the English Premiership, I'll look to League One, League Two. No, go abroad. So why don't we use these guys that are got a Celtic state of mind and who will demand for their players what was demanded at Celtic?
Yeah.
It's a mentality thing.
There's that great picture, isn't there, in the cup final with McGregor going up the steps, and there's Bruni and Lenny. You know, it's not over sentimental. The guys are good at their jobs, and as you say, Kev, they've got that winning mentality, the Celtic state of mind. I mean, if each of them took 3 or 4 of our fringe players, that there might be a player in there. We just need them to get games, build up a bit of character. I think it would be brilliant to see. Absolutely brilliant to see.
Do you know there's the best part of this as well, right? Because Neil Lennon's known for not taking any nonsense for his players. You just need to look at the exchange with Mikey Johnson when he was coming off the bench. But can you imagine, right? You've got Lenny. So imagine your parents are split up and your dad's the strict one. And it's like, any more of your nonsense, I'm sending you to stay with your dad. That's what he can be using as a tool as well. But I'll send you to go and stay with Lenny. He'll sort you out for a few months, you know? Any bad attitude.
It could work. I mean, listen, we have been critical. And by the way, it's a great point you make, Kev, about Jackie, because Jackie was critical during the COVID season as well, Neil Lennon. And he's looking back on it now and he's saying, well, you know, maybe he should have been removed from position due to his own health, really, in that situation, rather than anything else, because nobody else could have really done anything with all the moving parts. Yeah, the perfect storm as it was back then, Kev.
It was, and what my main gripe was, I don't think, I'm not going to go across all ground here. I think the board were lazy appointing Lennon the second time round. He had done his 4-month firefighting to get us over that line, but I thought as a club we had moved on. Then we went into a sort of comfortable zone again. Lennon's there, it's fine. Things that we've done previously will work. Then obviously COVID hit and everything just realised that it's not going to work. And it's probably great for him to get out of Scottish football. I mean, I think it was the group chat, where he's only one out of the last 7 Hibs manager that have lasted longer than 6 months. Yeah. He was 3 years at Hibs.
Yeah.
Aye. So,
well, when you consider, Kev, that they've had in the last 10 years, they've had 8 permanent managers and 2 interim managers. One of the interim managers just got the job permanently. And if Lenny's had it for 3 years, it shows you in terms of what's normal at Hibs is under a year, and Lenny's lasted 3.
Send them out there, and it's life experience for them. Absolute life experience to go to get something different, learn something different, but come back ready to play for Celtic, because that's the aim. That's the aim for all these guys.
I think it's definitely a move we should be looking into. At Maestro 95, look at that avatar. Hope that's not to us. Giving us the old Kez.
That's the double. 2 trophies.
Oh, yes. Oh, the double. I thought he's in a pub asking for a double. The scouting system has to be top notch. It does. And by the way, we do have a system in place. It's just about having the heads of these departments, the flying haggis. I'm doing the castle tour tomorrow. Can Kev be my tour guide? Kev, over to you, mate.
Sorry, mate, I'm working.
Make a translator.
You put the headphones on and you translate to English. I'm joking, Kev. I got a late night lift from a Stoke FC supporters bus when I was hitching one time 40 years ago. Les Watts were not having a go at Stoke. So if you've got anything nice to say about him, come back with us. Jungle Line, always bouncing about with an English jersey on yesterday. Ill-advised decision, or not. We've also got Martin's Toboggan back in. If the shoe was on the other foot, how much would we pay for a guy who can't get in the Stoke team, or either can't get into the Norwich team in the same league? So, it's one of the ones. And Strangelove, the doctor, rather than rumours, I'd like Celtic to reassure me that the scouting process is scientific, logical and robust.
Sorry for laughing, but...
Why laugh? That's a great point by the Strangelove, the doctor.
I think we're still waiting on a business plan, ain't we?
We are, but apparently that is going to be given at the next fans forum. Kev, go and explain to anyone who's never been to a fans forum, never dialed in, which is the only way I've done it, when you told the entire board to look at the window and ask themselves, what would Brother Wilfred think? That was just peak Kev Graham. We weren't allowed to record it, unfortunately, or I'd have played that little clip. What is a fans forum? How do you get involved? Because apparently that's where they're going to present some kind of strategy.
I think you can apply to go on the website to the fans forum. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't been back to one since that night.
Have you not been asked back?
Your emails have been bouncing since that night. It's true though. Okay, I was sitting there just as an observer, Jerry, right? And it was, I think, Brian Wilson took the floor and Kev just got fired writing about them. Go and take a look at that window right there and have a look at that statue, brother. It was great.
Did you, mate?
You did.
Oh, I love that.
I did. It was because of the whole setup of the situation that I saw through. It was set up to be a certain way, and the first person that had the comment in the fans forum, it was a plan. And so that was the reason that I wasn't the only one in the room that was angry, because the hands went up on the Zoom with quite quickly as soon as this guy started talking. The other guys realised that.
This was through COVID, where the club were asking us to pay full price for season tickets and no see a game. And what you were going to be given is a link to watch the game on Celtic TV. And the very first person that stood up and spoke said, I get 6 season tickets every season. Take my money. That was basically it, right? And everybody else has gone, really? You don't talk for the fan base here, And the response that he was given by the Celtic board, that's what I like to hear. That was the response, Kev, verbatim. That was
kind of...
So Kev stood up and it was talked to.
I'm not making any accusations, but that's a nice plant. I've got it, isn't it?
It is, yes. It definitely was a plant. I'm not naming any names.
So I think if you want to get involved in the fans forum, you go on the website and you can register. I think that you have to be able to get to Celtic Park now, though, because they didn't do them online, because they get idiots like me telling them to look out the window. I think you can do that. I think Declan goes to them all the time now. And
does Declan not cheer them? I think Declan cheers them.
You've cheered them at some point. What I found about them, what I did find about them, and this is nothing because everybody's got their own gripes with the Celtic board and that, but it's when they start getting to the minute details that, like, the water's not hot enough. they keep on running out of pies in the main stand.
There's a leak in the roof, and every time they sit in their seat, it's wet.
When it gets to that point, I can understand why the club
story.
sometimes. I can understand why the club sometimes hold them in.
I'd pay good money to have a leaky seat. I'll tell
There
you
was
that.
I can understand why the club sometimes.
As soon as it came out my mouth.
Norman Colchi, right, talking about fighting, are we? There must be something going on in the comments. How are the tickets going for Nacho Novo fight? Rapidly heading for cancellation from what I hear. Oh my God, I thought it was just a parody. I thought it was a made-up video. I thought it was a comedian just having a laugh. But no, there was a fight, a boxing fight set up. Talking of tickets, though, we have a Father's Day deal. When is Father's Day? 6 days, I think. We've got a Father's Day deal running for the next 6 days on Tomo Petrov and Jackie Mack. The boys from Seville will be joining us in Glasgow at BAD, Barras Art and Design, on the 27th of June, which I think is 2 weeks on Friday. If you want to take up the special deal, which is 50% off, first time I've ever done a deal, all you need to do is click on the link below and type in Acsom 1888. And then you can give someone a really good gift for Father's Day. Come along and see the boys chatting away as well. Now, Kevin's mentioned this is Acsom. This is our new show that we record every week. It goes out on a Friday night. I'm not going to tell you who the super guest is this week, but we will have one. And in order to watch Jackie McNamara, episode 1, Simon Donnelly, episode 2, just get onto the YouTube channel. They're on there. Subscribe, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us all that stuff, and hit the notifications bell. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved and getting us into the Celtic chat this Monday afternoon. All that's left for me to say, Jerry Taylor and Kevin Graham, thank you for joining me on a Celtic State of Mind.
Thank you, everybody.